It is an understatement to say that this has been a terrible year for the Boeing company. On June 5, 2024, a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket lofted the long-delayed and problem-plagued Starliner space capsule into orbit, initiating a short test mission to the International Space Station, or ISS, seemingly lifting the cloud over Boeing. Veteran astronaut Barry Butch Wilmore commands the Crewed Flight Test, CFT, marking his fourth spaceflight. The second astronaut aboard for the test flight is veteran astronaut Sunita Williams, who is on her third flight and is the former female record holder with 7 EVAs for a total of 50 hours and 40 minutes. Originally scheduled to last 8 to 10 days, astronauts Wilmore and Williams have extended their CFT mission to 62 days and counting as of this writing, August 6, 2024. This situation continues to raise concerns for Boeing. NASA awarded Boeing and SpaceX contracts to be the inaugural companies of the Commercial Crew Program in 2010. As SpaceX was still relatively new and had less experience than Boeing with its Crew Dragon crewed capsule, NASA expected the experienced Boeing company to be the first in space with its Starliner. NASA also allocated more funding to Boeing for the Starliner's development, indicating their preference. NASA explained that, unlike the smaller Crew Dragon, Starliner was to provide the additional function of boosting the ISS orbit. Since the Space Shuttle's retirement, only the Russian Soyuz capsules have been able to perform this normal function and maintenance on the ISS. SpaceX achieved this feat when Demo 2 launched on May 30, 2020, for a planned 31-day mission, despite Boeing's expectations to be the first to space for the Commercial Crew Program. Since then, Crew Dragon has successfully launched 13 times and returned 12 times, with Crew 8 still docked at the ISS and scheduled to return in late August. Starliner is still on the ISS, as is its SpaceX competitor, but unlike Crew 8, CFT has not set a return date, and this was not intentional. CFT flight had its flight delayed due to a number of issues that required, at one point, taking the Starliner back to the launch assembly building. Additionally, a helium leak on the pad led to another brief delay. The Atlas V rocket successfully launched the Starliner into orbit, assuring everyone that CFT did not encounter the same problem as the unmanned Starliner flight, known as OFT. The unmanned Starliner flight, known as OFT, encountered a major glitch during its attempt to rendezvous with the International Space Station, ISS. As a result, it used up too much fuel in orbit and had to return to Earth, thereby failing in its primary mission. In May 2022, Boeing launched OFT-2 at their own expense to prove it could reach the ISS. The OFT-2 test revealed additional problems, leading to further delays in Starliner's launch. This delay stemmed from the time required to resolve these issues and the lack of available docking space at the ISS during the delay. The launch, successful orbit, and rendezvous with the ISS proceeded as planned, bringing another sense of relief. Anxiety quickly replaced this as the helium leak reappeared before docking, and to make matters worse, several thrusters shut down during the docking approach. Wilmore and Williams were able to overcome the difficulties and successfully dock. It is not unusual for issues to occur in flight that are not necessarily mission-critical, but do raise concerns about the spacecraft. The return of a long history of program issues, such as thruster and helium system problems — helium pressurizes the propulsion system — led to Starliner's problems prior to docking. Instead of the issues happening on the pad or on a test stand at an Earth-bound test center, they were in orbit on an unproven, problem-plagued spacecraft. At this juncture, the scandal and damage to Boeing's reputation had eroded public trust, leading people to swiftly perceive the CFT astronauts as stranded victims of a company no longer capable of doing anything right. The fact that neither Boeing nor NASA effectively informed the public that they were under no obligation to return the astronauts within the 8 to 10-day mission duration did not alleviate the situation. Leaving Starliner and crew docked on the ISS gave NASA and Boeing the option to run detailed tests on what happened to Starliner. Rushing Starliner back to Earth would have prevented this, the spacecraft service module would have burned up in orbit, preventing any testing to identify the root cause of the issue. This was the best long-term decision for the Starliner program. The delay in CFT's return allowed NASA and Boeing to collect data and recreate the status of the Starliner at the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. The testing discovered that the heat built up in the thrusters has caused the Teflon seals to bulge and restrict the volume of propellant flowing into the thruster, thus causing a shutdown of the thrusters. Boeing and NASA both announced they are confident that Starliner can return to Earth with Wilmore and Williams on board. Despite NASA and Boeing being confident in their findings, they have not set a return date for the Starliner. The issue is that Starliner has been docked at the ISS for 62 days, but it is only rated to stay at the ISS for 70 days. The clock is running out for a return date. Boeing faces enormous stakes, and the only realistic option to continue the Starliner program is to perform a successful return for Wilmore and Williams. The worst-case scenario is that Starliner cannot successfully return from orbit with its crew on board. This would be a tragedy for NASA due to the loss of 2 astronauts, and it would justifiably end the Starliner program. A SpaceX Crew Dragon mission could rescue the CFT crew by staying on the ISS. This would be better for everyone, but Starliner would likely end. NASA and Boeing have about a week to make this decision that will leave astronauts and Starliner in the balance. Supporters of the space program should cheer for the successful return of Starliner and the continuation of Boeing in the commercial crew program. But it would be understandable, and indeed the right thing to do, if they correctly feel that Starliner's future is not worth 2 astronauts' lives. If they determined that the risk of an already risky business was too high, this would be the right decision. The importance of having 2 commercial crew programs lies in their ability to provide backup in case something goes wrong with one, thereby preventing America from becoming overly dependent on the Russian Soyuz program. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket grounded due to a satellite launch failure 3 weeks ago, briefly shutting down the U.S. manned space program. We space fans, or nerds if you want to call us that, need to cheer for Starliner, Crew Dragon, and the eventual launch of Sierra Space's manned version of the Dream Chaser and guarantee a constant U.S. presence in low Earth orbit. We wish the crew of CFT all the best.